Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be here around the world. And thank you for joining today's webinar, Designing Agile Training Courses for Maximum Impact and Results. I'm joined today by a few folks, Dr. Jack Phillips, Steve Talent, and Ravi Verma. My name is Eric Naberg. I'll be your host for today, but turn most of this over to them to take you through the content. Ravi, if we can quickly go to the next slide. So just some quick guidelines. You are muted. You'll be muted throughout, but you're welcome to ask questions. You can see in the panel, in your go to webinar control panel, you'll see a little box there that says questions. Add your questions, and we'll take them throughout the session, and certainly try to take as many as we can at the end as well. Feel free to add those questions as they come to your mind. Next slide, please. So just briefly, a little bit about who is Scrum.org. Scrum.org was founded by, and our chairman remains, Ken Schwaber, the co-creator of Scrum. Ken leads our organization in helping really improve how teams deal with complexity, really people and teams. We have a set of things to help you do that, a combination of training, certification, and lots of free resources available up on our website, like this webinar, to help you improve your knowledge, improve your understanding, and then prove what you know and what you've learned. Next slide. With that, I will turn it over to Jack to introduce himself, and team, take it away.
Hello, Jack Phillips. I'm chair of the ROI Institute. We help organizations and individuals see the value and show the value of what they do. We've been doing that for over 25 years, so it's good to be on the team here with you. And so we'll be coming back with some more information later. Thank you.
Welcome, Jack. Thank you. Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve Talent. I work with Ravi with Smooth Apps as an Agile coach. Have a particular interest in evidence-based management and how to integrate that into the Agile practice. And I've been working with Ravi and Jack in trying to integrate some of the really exciting concepts that Jack has with the ROI Institute into our practice.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome. And my name is Ravi. I am a Scrum.org professional Scrum trainer, and I am the founder and org whisperer at Smooth Apps. And I work with Steve, and I'm honored to be on this webinar with Jack. So let's get started. I want to start this conversation, this webinar, with a story of a typical Agile learning engagement. So this story is about three characters, Sally, Daryl, and Flinto. So let's join them on their Agile learning journey. So typically when clients or prospects contact us for Agile learning, chances are that some of their stakeholders are the trigger for that conversation. So here we meet a typical C-level executive. We call her Sally. And so here's what happens for most of our prospects. The reason they engage with us is some C-level executive has finally had it. Usually they're upset with IT. They say, look, IT is unreliable. They can never deliver. They're always late. When they do finally deliver, it's not what we asked for. They keep using this new buzzword called minimum viable product, but it's so damn minimal that it's no longer viable. Never what we want, never what we need, full of defects. And you know what? If I had a magic wand, I could replace the whole damn lot of them. And I was playing golf, or I was reading Harvard Business Review, and then one of my colleagues told me about this thing called Agile, and this is the silver bullet. So go forth and get some Agile training, and then fix these people. So usually that's where someone else will get an action item to go and find an Agile trainer. And we have a cast of characters that we come across a lot when people reach out to us. So here are some cast of characters. You may recognize some of them. One character we come across quite a lot is Stella. So when people contact us and say, Ravi, we need some training, what are your dates? What are your rates? And oh, by the way, is it negotiable? No matter what rate I give them, they will try to negotiate me down 30%. When I asked them why, can you tell me why you want this agile learning? Begin with the end in mind. The answer is just stay in your lane, shut up and train. All right. Then we have another buyer who's this persona is easy. All Easy wants is she wants to buy the cheapest damn agile certificate because her customers have said, I'm not going to do work with you unless all your team is agile certified, or her boss says, or Sally, the CEO says, everybody must be agile certified. Now, this is not a very sophisticated or informed customer. They don't care about what certificate people have. All certificates are equal. I just want to check the box. So sometimes Easy contacts us and she says, I don't care. When we ask her about the why, look, I just want to check the box. I want the certificate. Sometimes we have Sly. And what Sly says, this is something I learned from Mark Norman. Sometimes our buyers say, I want the cheapest slide reader. So I could buy a certificate from Agile Certificates R Us for $15 a pop, but I have a savvy and nuanced customer. My stakeholders will not be satisfied unless a human being actually comes in. So I don't care about the background of that person. I don't care if they have any practical experience. I just want a human being inside the cheapest slide reader. So when someone says, did you actually get trained by a person? I can say, yes, no, and you check the box. This presentation is not for any of these three, okay? So if you belong to any of these three, this is a great time to hang up or stop watching. I would say 70 to 85% of the agile learning buyer market probably falls in this category. So this webinar is not for these three personas or this customer segment, okay? The webinar is for a different kind of buyer. So this is Darryl, the director of software development, and he sincerely wants empirical value. He wants good things to happen in his company. So that's why he's in the market to purchase agile learning, okay? So this is a real world case study of one of our real world clients. So when I was engaged, these are the 6 outcomes that they wanted. They wanted incremental delivery of value. They had big bang releases, maybe 12 months, maybe 2 years. They wanted more features to be delivered. They wanted to decrease the cycle time. Instead of a big bang release every 1 or 2 years, they wanted to go to production every sprint, every 2 weeks. They wanted improved quality. This was a company which is in a regulated industry, so they did not want to compromise on quality or risk because Uncle Sam could shut them down. And most importantly, there was a very adversarial relationship between business and IT. It was an us and them kind of situation. So they wanted agile learning as a stepping stone to build better bridges between IT and business and a strong collaborative relationship, a one-team culture. So this represents the kind of person that this webinar is catered towards, a sophisticated buyer who sincerely wants to make the company better and who wants empirical evidence. All right. So let's see what happened. I was the naive trainer, Flinto. So the trainer flies in, trains, and flies out, right? So I delivered a 4-hour intro to Agile. I delivered a 2-day Scrum.org professional Scrum foundations. And every student got 1 attempt to the Scrum.org PSM1 assessment. Now, all this was before I had the privilege of being trained by Jack Phillips and Patty Phillips in their 5-day ROI certification. So this is the before story, all right? Here are some cast of characters we typically get in our training, okay? We've got Manny, the manager. Manny thinks Agile is BS. Manny's got tons of deadlines that his boss is going to hold him accountable for. And now suddenly the boss is also forcing him to send students to this training. So Manny is like really upset. And he thinks this is a waste of time. And his students or his direct reports who are forced to attend the training probably mimic his behavior, okay? Then we have Debbie. The only reason Debbie is attending training is she wants to argue with the trainer and prove the trainer wrong, all right? So she's not here to learn. She's not here to create empirical delivery or improvements in value. She just wants to win the argument. Then we've got Ari. Ari thinks training is R&R, and he doesn't have to work. He can just come, be a smart ass. And in fact, in another client, I actually had a student who was streaming golf in the back of the class. And when I caught him, he said, come on, it's Tiger. So that's the kind of students many of us get in our classes, all right? And then we've got Wally. Wally got voluntold by his boss. He would rather do real work, but sadly, he will get on he doesn't want to be on a bad boys list. So he will let everybody know at every opportunity through rolling his eyes and body language what a load of BS this whole thing is. So these are some cast of characters. As you see the cast of characters, if you identify someone who has been in your training or who you have been this person in a training, I'd love to get your feedback, interactive feedback through the comments panel. All right. We got some more characters that we've encountered in our training. Usually we give some pre-class prep work, so students come have some fundamental knowledge. Sharon Bowman from training from the back of the room calls it priming. So usually we give some pre-class prep work, and there will be students like Bessie who has no basic knowledge and who has no interest in doing prep work. They just show up completely blank, and they drag the whole class down by asking questions which were already answered in the prep work, right? Then we have Mel. Mel is always multitasking on the laptop, cell phone, checking emails. Sometimes I've had people who are taking calls inside of the class. And if you hold them accountable, they say, wait a minute, my boss never said that I couldn't do real work. So if you had told me I couldn't multitask in class, I wouldn't even be here, right? So consider it a favor that I'm gracing you with my presence here. We have Callie. Callie's job, sole reason for joining the training is not to create empirical improvements in the business. She just wants to collect one more certificate and make herself more marketable. Usually I have students like this, they attend the training, get the certificate, and then they resign and they go join another company at a higher pay rate. Now, we also have sincere learners. They do the prep work, they are there, they want to learn, and they get so frustrated because there's all this drama going on, and they get frustrated with the trainer to say, trainer, why are you losing control of this class? I came to learn from you, and you're allowing all these nitwits to control the conversation. So ultimately, Lenny gets very frustrated. So let's see what happens. Again, this is a before story, before I learned from Jack and Paddy. So what happened next? Well, 30 days after the PSM1 was over, I had only one student who passed, who attempted the exam. That student passed the exam. And after a few days or weeks or months, that student actually resigned. And that was like Callie. And that student got an amazing job in another company. After the training was over, after Flinto flew in, trained, and flew off, there was pure chaos in the company because nobody had passed the exam. So everybody had disparate and contradictory understandings of what I tried to teach them. So they kept fighting with each other. This is what Ravi said. No, this is what Ravi meant. And then I checked in with my buyer, and Daryl was saying, Ravi, it was horrible. After you left, life was worse than before you got here. Because I just gave them a bunch of new words to fight with each other about, right? So pure chaos. And now the skeptics are like, aha, see, I told you, Agile is a load of BS. Agile is outdated. We need something more modern. And Sally is like, man, this was a waste of money. We need to try something different. And she's out hunting for a new buzzword. Let's try digital. Let's try DevOps, Biz Dev, SecOps, cloud, blockchain, IoT, AI, virtual reality, something. And Flinto is like, man, these people don't get it. They are not agile. I'm sick and tired. Maybe I should become a golf instructor. Maybe I need a career change. But anyway, so that's a typical story. That's what used to happen. We didn't achieve any of the business outcomes. We didn't stay true to any of the agile values or any of the agile principles. So I let my industry down. I did not eat my own dog food or drink my own champagne, or maybe I didn't drink my own dog champagne. So I felt inauthentic as an agile practitioner. All right. So what would Jack Phillips do? And that's why I attended a 5-day ROI certification, one of the best trainings I've attended in my life with Jack and Paddy Phillips. So I am going to hand over to Jack so Jack can tell us what we can do better. So Jack, over to you.
Thank you. After that scenario, makes you want to find something else to do, maybe like be a golf instructor or have a wine shop or something. So our problem is we're not delivering value there beyond maybe some learning. And there's a lot of factors that cause it. So let's think about the possibilities here. Let's think about a value chain. And we'll think of 5 levels of outcome plus another type of data. We call it 6 types of measures, but they're logically structured here. And as we know, we first capture the reaction. How did they react to it? We do that all the time, but we want to get away from they're happy with the training to measures such as this is really relevant to me. It's important to me. It's important to our organization. It's something I will do, something I would recommend to others. That's the kind of reaction we want, because that translates into planned action. You see, if I have the right reaction, that correlates with actual action, doing something with what they're learning. So we want the reaction first. Without it, we'll go nowhere. Then there's learning. Obviously, learning affects reaction. There's a lot of learning that goes into these programs. Making sure they have acquired new knowledge and new skills quickly. It's something that they then begin to change their reaction. So we have to capture learning, and you do that typically in your programs. You build in the data collection here for level 1, which is reaction. Level 2 is learning. But if they do nothing with that, we've lost. We've lost them. We've lost this time. We've basically wasted. So we need the application. We need them to do something with what they've learned. And so we track the use of what they're learning and how often they're using it and the success they're having with it. And we also capture things like the barriers to them using it and the enablers to use. So we want them to do things, but from a funder perspective, an executive perspective, we want impact. We want those things that Daryl suggested: more throughput, better quality, better cycle time, and better compliance. That's what we want. You see, those are impacts that are clearly in the system, clearly measurable, and clearly can be converted to money. Some of those are convert to money easily because they're there. Some might be a little more difficult, and we call that intangible. Like collaboration, better collaboration from the business and IT is important. We can measure it, but converting it to money may be a little more difficult. So we define an intangible as a measure that we've decided not to convert to money. It's still important, but we don't convert it to money if it takes too long or it's not credible. But if we can convert it to money, we compare that money value now to the cost, and that's the classic return on investment. That's the ROI. That's what people want to see these days. What's the ROI? Show me the money. Show me what you're getting out of this and compare it to the costs. ROI is calculated by benefit cost ratio and the ROI expressed as a percentage. We'll talk about that more later. But this gives you a complete profile of success. It's a logic flow of data. It's a chain of value here. That is, you won't have business impact unless you have application. You won't have application unless you have learning. So one level leads to the next. But unfortunately, for so much training, it stops at level 2. Maybe, might not even be there. But our challenge is we have to have application. We have to have impact these days. Most executives would say, what I want from my learning is a business result, a business connection. We got to go there. And it's really icing on the cake if we can see ROI, because now it shows that we use the funds efficiently. We got more value from this than we paid for it. That's the 5 levels of outcome. We'll show you more process later, but that's the foundation there of what we offer.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jack. And there are lots of parallels here. I remember I attended an evidence-based management training with Ken Schwaber many years ago in Boston. And what Ken challenged us to do is to make sure that we measure empirical results and outcomes of agile training, coaching, and consulting. Otherwise, we are not eating our own dog food. So we can use practices like hypothesis-driven delivery, which is from the book Lean UX. And if we begin with the end in mind and we say, for every dollar spent in training and practicing and learning, how many dollars of ROI do we want? That can be our acceptance criteria. And then we can use techniques like impact mapping to back into designing every element of the learning experience so that, like a user story, so that it achieves the target measurable results. All right. So let's find out how we applied what we learned from Jack and Patty Phillips. So now this is take 2. This is a real world case study that Steve and I worked on. Of course, we have to protect client confidentiality, so we may not, we are intentionally not giving too much detail. But let's find out what happened next. So I am now going to pass the ball to Steve Talent. Steve, take it away.
Thanks, Ravi. So let's talk about some of the new players that we ran into in this second situation as we were doing things the ROI way. First of all, let's talk about Angie. Angie was an engaged director of product owners, and she was the buyer. Target outcomes was that every attendee pass the PSM or PSPO, depending on the training that we did, within 30 days. And we had additional outcomes. It wasn't just let's pass the certification class, but let's improve the product owner maturity model to a level 4 or 5 within 90 days. So when Jack was talking about application of the training, not just learning measurements, because learning measurements in our case are fairly easy to obtain because it's, do we pass the certification test or do we not? What's more difficult to obtain, but what's more important actually from a business standpoint, are what are the application metrics? How are these people actually applying what they have learned? And then, of course, from there, going into what is the business impact of the application of this new knowledge. So her commitment was she was willing to hold people accountable. She was willing to invest the time in training and also in applying the training. And she was willing to attend post-training coaching sessions and set up a series of post-training coaching sessions for her people. So this time we had Roy, the ROI Institute trainer, who was engaged to deliver a 2-day Scrum.org PSPO workshop. Roy had changed his name out of shame from all the various stories that he had to endure as Flinto. So one of his strategies was to just go anonymous, change his name, and assume a new identity. Wants to drink, as Ravi likes to say, wants to drink his own dog champagne, and actually willing to lose business rather than be unprofessional, unethical, inauthentic, unagile. So you negotiated a pre-sales agreement with Angie. And one of the things Jack will talk about a little bit later is start with the end in mind. What are you trying to accomplish? Don't just start training. You need to have a business impact and ROI goal in mind even before you do the first pre-training. So we made the eligibility. One of the rules for attending the class was that only students and managers who agreed to honor the participation agreement would attend. And we had set pre-class expectations, no multitasking, no streaming in class, even with no exceptions for watching Tiger play golf. So there was a requirement that they complete the pre-class prep work, take the open assessment, read certain resources, and acknowledge that they had done the prep work. Then we did a PO maturity assessment. And we don't have time to get into the specifics of that, but basically we took different areas of our PO playbook. Product owners able to create a product vision, understand and define product personas, all the way down through being able to do impact mapping, being able to create a quality roadmap, being able to do a release forecast. So I'm not going to read the entire list, but we rated every product owner on their maturity for various aspects of the job. We in our five-step rating was anywhere from a 1, being they weren't even using it at all, didn't even know what it was, 2 being that they were in the learning mode, 3 practicing it, 4 mastering it, and 5 actually being able to mentor other product owners on how to use it. So our goal was, after 4 months, we wanted mastery of this product owner maturity assessment. So the post-class expectations, everyone agreed that within 2 weeks they would do their first PSP01 attempt. And of course, with the Scrum.org procedures, that if they do the first attempt within 2 weeks, they would get a second attempt if they failed the first attempt. And so if they did need a second attempt, they agreed to do it within 4 weeks. And then they agreed to apply the learning. We wanted to have them, as a follow-up, do a 4-week experiment, take one aspect that they had learned in the PSPO class, share results through a lightning talk in a lunch and learn that we did. So everyone got up, did a 5-minute lightning talk, and took one aspect of the class and gave the results of the experiment that they used. So we also, our goal was to increase the PO maturity assessment to a 4 on the 1 to 5 scale within 4 months. And we did a series of post-class coaching sessions. So we had a 90-minute group session so that the POs could get together, share their experiences, help each other learn, and get feedback. And then we also did one-on-one coaching sessions with the POs bi-weekly to help them with their specific mastery of the material. We had the BAs that were in the class. They did a 60-minute bi-weekly team coaching session. We had some Scrum Masters. They also did a team coaching and one-on-one coaching. And the buyer, Ravi and I did 60-minute weekly sessions with her. And we also set up an Ask Me Anything web call that for 60 minutes monthly, and we publicized it, everyone knew when it was, and anyone could get on and ask questions about Agile, ask questions about Scrum, and they would get a common answer from their coaches. So what happened next? Well, as it turns out, this process that we followed was a much more successful process than Flinto's efforts. First of all, we did an end of class survey, and the end of class is where we get the reaction metrics that Jack was talking about. How did people feel about the class after it was over? And you can see we had very high percentages, almost all 88% or above in all areas of it being relevant, the training being impactful, them being likely to apply the training, them recommending the training to others. And then the last metric was how much their knowledge increased, and they said their knowledge on average increased 73%. So these are good numbers, and you would expect from this that people found the training valuable, and that the planned action would be they would follow up with the learning and application, and we should have a successful experience. So in this case, because part of the pre-class agreement was that they committed, if they took the class, they were going to do the assessment. We had 96% of the people who took the class attempted the assessment, and 85% passed. Now, we did, as you saw in one of the previous slides, we had some Scrum Masters, we had some BAs. It wasn't strictly product owners that took this, and so the 4% and 15% that didn't hit the objectives, those were not product owners. We actually had 100% passage in the product owner ranks, and so that was a very successful learning metric. So then the next metric that we looked at was the application. And our application metric, our primary application metric, was how well the product owners were doing in our product owner maturity assessment model. And again, as I said, we had a scale of 1 to 5, and we ranked the product owners before and we ranked them after. And we got self-assessment from the product owners. We got input from their manager, and Ravi and I also, based on our observations, ranked the product owners as well. And so this is sort of a composite score. We had hoped to get everyone to 4 months, to a 4 out of 5. We got most people into the very close, and we had a few people that actually exceeded it. And let me just make a comment here about timing. Our timing, if we had had another 6 months to follow up on this, I think we would have a completed story going through business impact and return on investment. But many of you may have noticed that the business environment changed rather drastically about 30 days ago. Unfortunately, this company was in a very disadvantageous industry, and essentially all development work has been put on hold. Some people have had to be furloughed, and they're basically hunkered down in the bunker trying to make it to the point where they can reopen. And hopefully, this will all pass. They'll reopen, and we'll get to see the long-term benefits of this. So we would love to have some actual metrics of target business impact, but just when we got to the point where we were starting to collect that information, there's really no data to collect at this point. Also, that point of we didn't quite get to our goal on the maturity assessment model. I think if we'd had another 2 weeks, I would have been honestly able to say that everyone would have gotten there. We were very, very close, but I couldn't in good conscience say, okay, I'm rating these people as a 4 because there were still some gaps in the knowledge and still some things that they needed to improve on. But really, I think we were within a couple of weeks and another coaching session, a little bit more feedback and fine tuning, and we probably could have gotten everyone up to that 4 level. But again, lots of things have happened that have prevented that. So what are the targeted business impacts that we should see from the training? And this is something that I don't know that people do often enough when they start doing Agile training, or just when they do an Agile transformation. Where do we want to go? What do we want to see out of this other than, oh, we want to become Agile? But what are some of the targeted business impacts that we were setting up metrics for and we were going to measure? Increasing product ROI. A good product owner, what's the number one description of a product owner in the Agile world? They're the chief value optimizer. So that should mean that we should translate that into seeing increased product ROI in some form or another over the course of 3, 6, 9 months. Another key business impact is decreasing waste. If you are successfully able to align and adopt the Agile process, it should mean that you won't be building features that the market doesn't want. It should mean that you won't be building long, complicated features that turn out not to be exactly the right features, that you have to go back and do rework. So there's a lot of opportunities for decreasing waste if you successfully implement the principles of this learning. Decreasing time to market, being able to deliver things in a more timely manner, being more agile, if you will, increasing customer satisfaction and retention, and increasing employee satisfaction and retention. So we had set up, using the principles of evidence-based management, we had set up the metrics and the dashboards to start collecting this data. We had set goals. We had, the product owners had set wildly important goals. They had identified leading indicators. They had done all the things that evidence-based management and Agile tells you to do. And we were all ready to implement this. And then, as I said, unfortunately, everything shut down. So there's really not anything to measure at this point. But you can see how, as Jack was talking about the different metrics and the different phases of metrics, we walked right through all 5 phases, or we were in the process of walking through all 5 phases, from the learning outcomes all the way through the ROI. So again, is the outcomes that what business outcomes we achieved. All the POs did pass the PSPO 1 within 30 days. Every PO improved their maturity level. And just to give you a level set, the average here is, the average is just under 4. The average before we started this process, it was about 1.6. So we had a lot of POs who were in the learning, or some of the better POs were getting into the practicing level, but we had no POs that were at the point of teaching, and really no POs who had really mastered the information in the product owner playbook. So not only did we have, so this target, or this goal, is saying we only had 40% reach our goal. As I said, with a couple more weeks of work, we probably would have had 100% achievement. And then we also had an average increase from about 1.6 to about 4. So a significant increase in the product owner maturity assessment. So what did we value here? This training and this process stays true to the Agile principles. We valued individuals in interactions, working software, customer collaboration, or if you want to tweak this just a bit, working training and student teacher collaboration, and responding to change. And we did early, continuous, and valuable delivery. How do we know it was valuable? Well, because by implementing the principles of the ROI process, we were able to track very early leading indicators of the value, such as the reaction metrics and then the learning metrics, as opposed to waiting 6 to 9 to 12 months to determine if this training was going to provide bottom line ROI. We did welcome and harness change. We delivered working solutions frequently. By going through the 5-step ROI process, it gives you an opportunity. If you don't get the kind of reaction from the training that you were expecting, it gives you an opportunity to evaluate, reassess, and possibly do some more training or some change in your delivery method, as opposed to not having those kind of metrics early on. So I won't go through every single thing, but we were able to help with all aspects of Agile principles. We did apply those Agile principles. And again, there's a real synergy between the principles of ROI and the Agile principles, and the way we were able to set forth a measurement process that helped us along the way know that we were hitting our marks.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Jack, if I could pass it back to you to
Yes.
walk us through the 4 major stages, please.
Yes. You see, as Steve just emphasized, when you get to level 4, that's the important part. We're all moving toward that. And it's so important that we should start with that end in mind, as Steve suggested there. But we often don't. And so that's a change that we need. So this model starts with the planning for our study, planning for our delivery of results, and it starts with why as the very first point. The why is a business measure. So in the beginning of a project, we want a clear understanding of those business measures that Steve identified there in level 4. We want to think about that in the beginning. And then we move to the next part, and that's to make sure on step 2, we're not quite there yet. We still in the planning, but the step 2 there is to make it feasible. That is, make sure we have the right solution. Make sure that Agile training is what they need to get to where they need to be in their software development to hit those metrics at level 4. That's usually an easy thing to do. That's what brought us into the picture. It usually connects quite well there. And then we expect success. And this is important because we now have defined success at level 4. We want everyone to know this. And so we set objectives at each level for level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and even level 5. That is for reaction, learning, application, impact, ROI. And so each stakeholder involved here has those objectives so they know where we're going and they know their part in the process. So stakeholders are really step up to where they need to be. And it's also at this point we can actually forecast the ROI in advance. So just imagine forecasting the ROI of an Agile training program before you conduct it. See, I suspect right after the crisis that we're involved in now, a lot of projects are going to be held to this standard. Show me the money now. Show me what you will get from this now. Now, with this proper setup with the planning, now we can go with it and we go to the next step. And this is where we make sure that we've designed for the process that we need. We're collecting data now. We're concerned about making it matter to the people involved in our project, particularly the participants in our training. Is it important to them? Is it actionable to them? And there'll be learning that they'll capture too, making sure reaction and learning is there for make it matter. Learning is going to affect their reaction. And then we capture the data with application and impact. What are they doing with what they've learned? That's making it stick, we call it. So you want to make sure that now they're routinely using some of the Agile principles in their development. And are they having success with it? What's getting in the way? We want to make it better if it's not working. And then this is where we capture the impact. Those are the measures that Steve mentioned, impact measures they want to improve. So when we have that impact, we've got some challenges in front of us now. If we go to the next step, you can see the first thing we want to do is sort out the effects of the Agile training from something else. For example, if you're decreasing the time to market, we know there are a lot of other factors that are going to be out there, so we have to take some technique, some process to sort out the effects of what we're doing here from other influences. To me, that's the most critical credibility issue. Make it credible by isolating the effects of our training from everything else. You can do that. Classic experimental versus control group, some trend line analysis, mathematical modeling, or just expert estimation. We can get there. We're going to always do that. That's one of the standards for this process. And now we have to convert data to money. So do we take those metrics that Steve listed there? We have to find the money. And you can do that. You can usually work with the IT group that can help you come to the monetary value if we improve that. I had a project just last month with BMW in Munich, Germany, as we work with the IT team there. We were actually doing a forecast of a project, and we were able to get to the monetary value of all the metrics that we're improving here. You can usually find that. And that's the money from our process. That's the money that we're delivering. It's usually a cost avoidance. We're avoiding a cost because now we can do things quicker, with better quality, and less disruption. And now we look at the total cost of our process, the total cost of all the Agile training. It's not just the Flintos coming in and training, but it's all the indirect costs that we have. So we have all of the costs. We compare the cost of the benefits. We get the ROI. It's a classic equation. Benefits minus costs divided by costs times 100 gets us the ROI expressed as a percent. Now, we also have some measures that we don't convert to money, like collaboration between the business group and the IT function. Or sometimes it's less stress. Sometimes it's better customer satisfaction, better employee satisfaction, better employee engagement. All of those are important measures that may not be easily converted to money. If we cannot convert it to money credibly with a reasonable amount of time, we will leave it as an intangible. Still important. Now, finally, we've got some reporting to do. Two important issues here on the last phase. One is to tell a story. We got a story now with numbers, so it's narrative and numbers. At each level, we got stories that we have here of what's going on, and we've got the numbers, the evidence, the data that shows the difference that we've made. So we need both of those, and that's compelling. Now we can use that in the very last part of the process. We're using this data from our evaluation to make it better. You're going to see things not working so well. We make improvements. We make process improvement. That's optimizing the results of what we have. If we optimize the ROI of this program, we're making a better case for funding in the future. Funding is going to be an issue for so many projects after this crisis. And so we want to be able to show the value of what we do so that we can increase the funding for Agile training. That's ultimately where we want to go with this, is to use black box thinking, that thinking of process improvement all the way through the process, which is very vivid in the airline industry. We want to use it here with our projects to make them better. And now we can maybe keep our funding, increase our funding. So I think Steve's got a couple more points here.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, and our main goal is to increase the empirical delivery of value. So, Steve, back to you.
Yeah, as I said, unfortunately, Roy only got to this point through no fault of his own or ours. Blame a virus for this. But we did go through these steps, starting with the why, aligning the programs with the business, selecting the right solution, planning for the results. And before we even started, I think this is, if you learn one thing from Jack's process, is that outline the entire plan before you get started. Don't start by saying, okay, we're going to do a PSPO class. And then after you do the class, say, okay, now what are we going to do with this? Know what you're going to do with the learning, know what you're going to do all the way through to the ROI impact before you start. That way you're able to design for tracking metrics in the various phases, to finding reaction learning and application metrics, and being able to see the process unfold in real time. So this is where we had designed for application and impact. We were ready to start collecting data and do the analysis on the remainder of the process. And again, we were shut down through external circumstances. But I have no doubt that we would have had a much greater impact. We had product owners who were understanding the concepts of what's important about a product vision, what's important about communicating product personas to our entire team, what's important about doing impact mapping in order to align new features that we may develop, and in order to prioritize the development of features in our product with the personas that we're building this product for. So we had product owners who were able to articulate this not only back to Ravi and I, but were able to articulate this to their stakeholders and articulate this to their teams. So I have no doubt that we were going to see impressive ROI results in terms of, in the areas of reducing waste, improving or decreasing time to market, and just overall improving the value and the ROI of their products.
Good. Thank you, Steve. So closing thoughts, what can you take from this? This is a very methodical, outcome-based approach. It's a very rigorous and disciplined approach. Based on my experience, I would argue that 70 to 80% of buyers of Agile learning just don't give a damn. They are not interested. So this is not for, I would say, the majority of the Agile buyers. I would say maybe 10 to 15% are coachable. They are curious. So maybe this webinar can help them, help shift their mind to say, maybe there's a better way to spend your money. And I would say maybe 10 to 15% are pre-sold. It's just that they are hungry and they're looking for an approach. So our goal with this webinar is to create a more sophisticated buyer of Agile learning. And also our second persona is if you have ethical and professional Agile trainers and they're just looking for a toolkit or some principles and values or playbooks, hopefully we can give them some ideas that they can use so that we can stay true to our core principles and values. All right. Begin with the end in mind. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So please be good stewards of your investors' money. Refuse to spend money or refuse to be complicit in burning investors' money. Investors' money is hard-earned money, just like yours. So stay true to your principles and values and refuse to deliver training if you don't know how it will benefit the client. All right. Apply, drink our own dog champagne. Apply things that we preach practitioners should apply in delivery of software capabilities. Let's do the same thing for delivering training, for knowledge. Use hypothesis-driven delivery. Identify the measurable outcomes you are trying to achieve or create for the business as a result of your learning. And there's no point in setting target outcomes if you don't measure the actual outcomes. So this is what Ken Schwaber taught me. Inspection comes when you compare the actual reality with the desired reality, and the payload is in the gap between actual reality and desired reality. You mind that sucker for all it's worth, and that's how you will learn, how you will become better, and you will adapt. So I feel there is no shame in failing. You are guaranteed to fail because we are in the complex domain. The shame is in not learning and not course correcting. So measure the efficacy of your learning experience as a stepping stone to adapt and course correct. All right. Reflect, learn, and improve. All right. So where do you go from here? If you want to learn more, contact Smooth Apps. We've got playbooks. We can give you training, coaching, and consulting. If you are hungry for specifics. And ROI Institute, contact, you're going to get a free ebook. Contact Kathy at the ROI Institute. We've got free membership at level 0. You get tons and tons of awesome resources. Again, this is all scientific and empirically proven research-based techniques. So get a ton of free resources. ROI Institute has got virtual ROI certification. Just go to roiinstituteacademy.com, especially because we can't travel. Let's use this time to learn from our homes. Once coronavirus is under control and we have face-to-face learning, you can learn in person from the ROI Institute. Use the code Agile 2020 and you're going to get a discount. And all of these slides will be made available to you. They will be available with the recording. And now let's do Q&A. We have a few minutes.
Great, thanks
Eric,
everyone.
do we have any questions?
We do. We have a few questions. We'll start with this one. What is the greatest challenge in the organization's training program after implementing Jack's method, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, for me, the biggest challenge in my mind is apathy, management apathy. So, Steve and I did this with one client. That's the case study here. And I have another client right now. And the delta is when managers, directors, VPs, and the CIO, they feel that this is just low-level stuff, and they take their eye off the ball. You have train wreck after train wreck after train wreck because management is nothing but glorified feature managers or project managers. And they don't understand how the train wrecks they are seeing could have been avoided if only the students developed the muscles and applied what was learned in class. So management apathy, and I would say management ignorance. Managers who are very casual in approving funding for training, but then do not support, encourage, and motivate their team members to apply the learning until the muscles are strong and it becomes the new way of being. So my other client, the chief product officer attends every coaching session. The chief product officer is asking the practitioners, tell me, how can I support you? The chief product officer is removing impediments. We have support from the CTO of the company. So because management exercises servant leadership, the impact metrics are much higher. So that's my answer. Steve, Jack, is there anything you would like to add?
I'll add two more just quickly. There's a fear of ROI, can you imagine? Some people think that they may not drive enough impact to, when it's converted to money, to overcome the cost of the training. So no one wants to see a negative ROI. But if you're proactive and you go down this path on your own, you're in a much better position because you're making the adjustments and changes and you're designing for ROI. So you can minimize that issue by using this process. The second thing I'd say, this takes the trainer out of the typical comfort zone. You have to have a lot of discussion with your client here. You have to understand those level 4 metrics that you want to drive. You have to have a lot of dialogue, and sometimes they just prefer to come in and train and not have that discussion. So it does move them out of their comfort zone sometimes.
Right. Thank you, Jack.
Great. Thanks, all. So there's this, I almost see this as almost somewhat of a follow-on question. It's kind of part of what you just talked about, Ravi. So I figured we'd take this one next. Can you speak to what you do as a trainer with the broader executive leadership in an organization before the training, so they know what reasonably to expect from an agile transformation, or as I would say, transition, because you're never going to transform an entire organization. Even if the buyer of the training is on board, it may be necessary to help sell above and throughout. So are there any suggestions you have? I know you kind of just touched on this a little bit, Ravi, by getting execs involved. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, from the School of Hard Knocks, I've learned not to accept any engagement if I don't get a chance to speak to the CIO or the CTO before signing the statement of work. If I find that the CIO or CTO is saying they are too busy to speak with the enterprise agile coach before signing the statement of work, that is a leading indicator of almost guaranteed failure. So what do? I make it very clear. Scrum, in the words of Steve Porter, Scrum is revolutionary and not evolutionary, which means Scrum is going to expose systemic impediments which can only be resolved by the C-suite. If the C-suite is not interested in playing ball, if they're not interested in coaching sessions, if they're not interested in being challenged by me, it's almost guaranteed to be waste of time. And I don't want to be Flinto because I suck at golf. I have no future as a golf trainer. So anyway, so that's what I do. If the CIO is not interested in talking, if the CIO is not committing to me, Ravi, I will spend 60 minutes, at least 60 minutes a week with you, and I'm okay with you challenging me, and I will improve myself because all the dysfunction in the company is a mirror for me. If the CIO does not have that kind of skin in the game, I'm not going to work with them. And by the way, I lose a lot of business. I have a very high rejection rate. But when I do find people who get through this qualification process, it's a joy.
Great. So thanks, everybody. I want to be conscious of our time box here. There are more questions, and we'll try to get to them virtually via email. But I think we're just about at time. So if we can just jump to the next slide, Ravi. And just keep your learning going. Don't ever stop. Make sure you check out the different learning paths on Scrum.org for the different roles. We're always putting lots of free material like this webinar out to help you continue your learning and continue your evolution. And heading to the next slide, I just want to say thank you very much. Follow us, check out, get more information, keep watching. And with that, everybody, please be safe and thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Thank you.